How much are you worth?
I have no idea. How much do you want?
No, I just want to know what you're worth. Over 10 million?
Oh, my, yes.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
The future, Mr. Gitz.
Hi, everybody. Once again, it's 7 a.m. or thereabouts, depending on when the engineers get through the commercials and put this on the air. And it is Politics with Jake, and I am Jake himself. And before I get too far down the road, because we've got a lot of show, probably not going to get to it all, I wanted to talk to you about the clip you just heard, and it was a very short clip, and it's from the classic movie Chinatown. And it's set in the 30s, it's during the Depression, it's in Los Angeles, and I just love this movie. It's a classic movie, and one of the reasons why I love it is because it portrays what I think is an elemental truth. And I like movies because they're great at this. They portray elemental truths. Like I said, it's classic, and there's a scene it's got some great actors in it. Jack Nicholson is in it. He plays J.J. Gittes, who is a private detective. John Huston is in it. A great actor, great director. Faye Dunaway is in it. Just a great cast. Great cast, and other supporting players really good too. So there's this scene, this oh so prominent in my mind scene between, once again, Nicholson's character, Jake Gittes, and maybe that's why I like it, because the guy's name's Jake. This wonderful, compelling scene in which is just overall just a great movie in which there's a scene where Jake is questioning Noah Cross, and that's the John Huston character, about his wealth and his riches, and you heard it. He says to Cross, "Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What could you buy that you can't already afford?" And Noah Cross says, "Oh, the future, Mr. Gittes, the future." And the reason this scene occurs, and it's expressive of the situation that exists today and that always exists, Gittes is genuinely asking because it's someone like Noah Cross is unfathomable to him. He doesn't understand. And it's, as I said, it's not just that he doesn't understand. It's not like a math problem or something like that. He can't fathom it. And although more could be said, this is the crux of the entire point. You can't really live better. He asks, "Are you worth 10 million?" And Cross laughs. He scoffs. And he says, "Oh my, yes." And remember, this is the 1930s. That's an enormous amount of money. But you can't really live better. You can't eat better. Not really. You can't eat more. The point of food at its most fundamental, and remember, at this time, people were down and out. There were people who were starving. The point of food at its most fundamental is to keep you from starving. The point of a house is to keep you from the elements. And why deny these things to others? Or why proscribe them so that they do not reach a standard of decency, those people, that is, so they do not reach a standard of decency and, more importantly, sufficiency. What more can you eat, I ask, as J.J. Gittes act? How much better can you live? What more can you buy than what you can already afford? And that, in a nutshell, is very much the idea of the New Deal. And the New Deal made the middle class powerful. And that's the problem. There are people who don't like that. Okay, and we, of course, will return to that. As usual, we've just got, and this is the September 12th show, and we've got a lot to cover. So really, rather than spend too much time with the preliminaries, I'm going to dive right in. Of course, Politics by Jake, we want to do number one, political education, and number two, we want to do an overview of everything that's going on, and there's just not enough time to get to it. And so I try to limit these things to the political education part, because I know that you are hearing these things in other places. And so I defer to other digital media, alternative media that are reporting these things. But I occasionally want to report one or two of them. And we have from the BBC, and it's always a tragedy that you have to resort to foreign news sources in order to get the truth. But there's bad stuff going on with ICE Gestapo and the BBC has an article, and it's entitled Supreme Court Lifts Limits on Immigration Raids. And because Politics by Jakes tells you what they won't, and because the regular media are really not talking about this, unfortunately, we need to have recourse to it. So what has happened is that the United States Supreme Court, that corrupt organization, has ruled sweeping immigration raids in Los Angeles can continue for now. And what this did was, and this is just outrageous, by the way, what it did is it lifted a federal judge's order that had barred agents from making stops without reasonable suspicion. And the Monday ruling is a win of just the worst and most offensive kind for the current tenant of the White House, the MAGA cabal, the cultish regime that has grasped, illegally, I might add, the levers of power, a proven insurrectionist who should not able to be elected as anything so much as a dog catcher in either a state or federal venue. And unfortunately, this person has vowed to conduct record-level deportations of migrants in the country illegally. And this is such an obscenity. It's a 6-3 decision of the majority, conservative majority court. And what it does is it allows agents to stop suspects based solely on their race, based solely on their language, or on their job, while a legal challenge to the recent immigration sweeps in L.A. works its way through the courts. And of course, you've heard the old saying, the wheels of justice grind slow, but they grind fine. And I don't know about the fine part, but they really grind slow. And this is one of the ways the cabal tries to take these things over and implement what they want to do, because they cannot, a priori, in the very first instance, be easily stopped. I could sit there and say there needs to be a working group, there needs to be a think tank that prepares templates of lawsuits based on what they think this fascist cabal is going to do. And I would love, having been in the legal profession for, well, I don't even want to tell you how long, because it's actually kind of embarrassing, but a long time, okay? I've been in it for a long time. I would love to be a part of this group so that we could do things faster, but I'm not. I'm here doing political education on Politics by Jake, and, I'm fine with that. So, that's the way it goes. Now, the liberal justices did dissent, and they said, rightly so, that the decision puts constitutional freedoms at risk. One of them, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, she wrote that countless people in Los Angeles area have been grabbed. They have been thrown to the ground. They have been handcuffed. They have been physically assaulted, brutalized, barbarized. She didn't write that. I'm just saying that because it's true. That's how this plays out in real time. It's not immaculate. It's not puritanical. These things happen because you have a group of individuals who long for what they consider to be a kind of reckoning. And they long to vent their physical spleen. And unfortunately, you find these in law organizations. And a lot of the people who are in the ICE Gestapo, they're not legitimate police officers. They're not legitimate law enforcement. I used the story about Francis, the character Francis, in the movie Stripes, who was in the armory because he was about to arm up and with his platoon go rescue their sergeant who was now in communist territory. And someone asked him what he was feeling, and he made this statement, which is all too true in reality. And Francis is a fictional character in a movie called Stripes. And he said, all I know is that I'm finally going to get to kill somebody. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Let's be blunt, shall we? America is litigious. It's unstable, and it's financially weaponized. If your name is on everything you own, you're a sitting duck. At Twain Consulting, we help you vanish legally, ethically, and permanently. From land trusts to layered LLCs, we teach you how to restructure your assets so the predators can't see them and can't touch them. This isn't a loophole. It's a strategy that the wealthy have used for decades. Isn't it time you got the same protection? Call Twain Consulting at 805-380-5699 or visit us online. Protect what's yours before someone else claims it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. This is Jake, here to tell you the world is on fire, only you're not being told who actually lit the match. Politics by Jake, Mondays and Fridays at 7 a.m. on KCAA. Okay, and we are back, and picking up where we left off with the movie Stripes and Francis, who they called Psycho. And I just wanted to tell you, as a former correctional officer and as former police officer, these people are in ICE Gestapo. They long to do this. They long for the physical restraints, the rights under the Constitution. They long to be freed of these things that they consider shackles so that they can vent their own anger, which is often not directed towards these people, only by conniving and duplicitous people who, standing afar off in our nation's capital and in our state houses, make these declarations that inspire these kinds of people who Lenin used to refer to, and Stalin also, under the category of useful idiots. People who could always be counted on to do the work of the oligarchs, to do the work of the rich, to work against their own financial, their own economic, even their own constitutional interests. And you have these people on regular police forces too. I was a police officer. I know that there are these kinds of people on police forces, but more so in this quasi-fascist organization, the ICE Gestapo. And it's tragic because they're being handcuffed simply because of their looks, because of their accents, and because of the fact that they make a living by doing manual labor. And Sotomayor wrote, today, the court, in its decision, needlessly subjects countless more to these exact same indignities. And of course, you know, the fascist cabal that has commandeered the White House, illegally, honestly, 14th Amendment, Section 3, Trump is an insurrectionist. He's aided and abetted and prosecuted and promulgated insurrection. It's been proven. I refer you once again to the Colorado Supreme Court case in which this was talked about, and an excellent, it's called, the case, by the way, is called Griswold v. Anderson, because that's the Secretary, Anderson was the Secretary of State. And in an excellent opinion, the court, and I don't know if it was a per curiam or if there was an actual justice, and I could look this up, and I apologize, but per curiam, it's Latin, it just means through the court. So it means that nobody's going to put their name on it, but this is what the court ruled. I don't know if it's per curiam or through the court, or whether one of the justices put their name on it, and whether it was joined by the other justices, of course, but per curiam kind of means that anyway. So, all right, moving on, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, California Governor Gavin Newsom, both Democrats criticized the decision, stating, today's ruling is not only dangerous, it's un-American, it threatens the fabric of personal freedom in the United States. And it does. Because there, but for the grace of God, go you. And once they have gotten rid of those people, and you will pardon the expression because it sounds dismissive, it sounds negative, it sounds pejorative, and I don't mean for it to sound that way. But it's Mexicans, it's Hispanics, it's Latinos, it's people with brown skin, it's people who speak Spanish as their first language and have an accent when they speak English. It's those people who are working in the fields doing this. By the way, what I would say is this backbreaking, just soul-crushing manual labor, which you could not get Americans to do. And don't say, Jake, don't give me this stuff. It's never been tried. Yeah, it's been tried. It's been tried. They've done experiments back in the Audis on this. It's been tried. Americans will not do these jobs. And these people come here much like the Goths in the ancient days of Rome, came over the borders, the northern Roman borders, to obtain the economic benefits of the stability of the Roman Empire. These people at the southern border aren't any different. They want that, and they're willing to work just devastatingly, debilitatingly hard to put in backbreaking labor under the cruel elements for so many hours just in order to get this. This is an obscenity. This is an abomination. But unfortunately, right now, while the other lawsuit is going through the courts, Newsom warned that Trump's private police force now has a green light to come after your family. I was referring to these Latinos, these Hispanics, be they Mexican or be they whoever they may be. And the decision by the Supreme Court, it lifts an order by U.S. District Judge Miami, I hope I get that right, Frimpong in Los Angeles, and she said that there is a mountain, a veritable mountain of evidence showing that these raids were violating the U.S. Constitution. And the order that she made halted the raids, saying that the Trump administration just cannot rely on factors like apparent race or apparent ethnicity or merely speaking Spanish alone to stop or question individuals. And that judge also barred immigration enforcement agents from conducting stops, which is what we're doing, and what they're doing now. Conducting stops based solely on someone's presence at a particular location, like a bus stop, an agricultural site, a car wash, or, based solely on the kind of work an individual like that who is targeted would be likely to do. Labor or semi-skilled work. So the history on this, by the way, is that the Trump administration has moved on. They're supposedly going to Chicago. They've gone into D.C. And this is all performative, by the way. This is all nonsense. Trump longs for, and his fascist cabal, they long for a state of emergency that they can hang their hat on, that for some reason the state and civil authorities are unable to enforce the laws, so they can have an excuse to go in there and do so. But it's all performative because these things are not happening. The police forces have not broken down. The civil authorities have not broken down. The courts are still entirely working, and there is no need for this. But this is what he's trying to do. And one of the reasons he's trying to do it, doesn't want the 2026 elections to take place. And we're going to talk more about that later on in the show. So, but what happened in Los Angeles, which he hates, he despises and hates California, sweeping immigration raids back in June, stopping and arresting people at Home Depots and other workplaces. He deployed 2,000 National Guard troops illegally, 700 Marines illegally, without authorization from the state of California. The Ninth Circuit kicked him back and said, well, you can protect federal property, but you really can't do anything else. Federal judges since ruled that very thing, said that the National Guard deployment was illegal. And what did Trump do? Call the judge a rogue judge. A rogue judge who's trying to usurp the president's authority to protect American cities from violence and destruction. And the Supreme Court has just made the decision to let the raids continue. So I hadn't quite intended to talk this long about it, but you know how these things go. And one of the things that I did want to say is that, among other things, and I was in the legal profession for a long time. Again, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you how long, but the chilling effect on commerce and the potential for litigation by the state against the federal government on not only California, but other farm and agriculture states, and how deplorable it is that those who are doing manual labor are so violated and so set upon and so constrained. And really, it's like an attack on the states themselves, because it's a restraint upon trade. It's a restraint of commerce. Because if the ICE Gestapo, because that's exactly what it is that they are free to invade farms and fields, and by the way, one of the reasons they wear masks is because they are liable for violations of state law if it is known who they are. This is shameful, and this gives the lie. And they cannot be protected by federal laws. They cannot be pardoned by executive authority. They're entirely susceptible to prosecution. And some of these states, like Pritzker, for example, in Illinois, they have warned, we're going to go after you, and we will use all our resources to make sure that you do not escape the violation of our state laws. So this is quite serious, and that's one of the reasons why they wear the masks. Because if the ICE Gestapo, getting back to what I was saying, restraint upon trade and commerce, are free to invade farms, free to invade fields, free to invade places of transportation to those people's areas of work in order to save themselves, workers will naturally not go to work. Governor Newsom basically warned these people that for now the Supreme Court has given the Trump fascist cabal a green light. So what will they do? They'll hide. They won't go to work. They'll hide. They'll stay off the streets. Crops will not be picked. Crops will rot in the fields. And this will have a tremendous impact on not only California's economy, but other agricultural states as well. And, you know, honestly, the economy is in danger. At this point, I've talked quite a bit about this. We do want to take a break and let some of the sponsors say something. So let's take a break right now. And this is Politics by Jake, and we will be right back. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Imagine, if you will, having the power to disappear from the prying eyes of creditors, identity thieves, nosy strangers, all while protecting what you've worked so hard to build. That's what virtual invisibility offers. It's not magic. It's smart legal and business strategy to shield your assets and privacy so you can live free, confident, and in control. Most people think that asset protection is only for the ultra-wealthy, but it's for anyone who wants peace of mind and financial security, including you. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control now. Call me at 213-465-0639 or go to facebook.com/Twain Consulting to learn how virtual invisibility can protect you and your family, because when you're invisible to risk, you're unstoppable. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. Hi, this is Jake with Politics by Jake to tell you you're not crazy. The system is rigged. Help us say it louder, won't you? Join us at patreon.com/Politics by Jake. All right, and I don't want to spend too much, it's Politics by Jake, and we're back. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is important because the other news media won't tell you this. And this is exactly really one of the reasons why I say to you, you want to listen to me. Everybody needs to listen to me. And that's not grandiose, although I could understand if you wanted to be short-sighted and say, this is just Jake again being grandiose. No, it's not. Why you want to listen to me is because I will tell you things that other news media won't tell you. And one of the things I want to tell you is about Hamas and how that's connected to something else. But I'll tell you this first. Hamas doesn't care, and you've heard me say this before. They don't care about their own people. The strategy of the Hamas movement is cruel and barbaric and cynical, most cynical. And it's basically to promote excessive Palestinian deaths. And the more horrible the death, the better. So in other words, men, women, children, non-combatants, doesn't matter. They want dead bodies. I talked about this briefly on the show, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. And this is not known, but back in March, there was an actual, and it's not known, it wasn't reported. I got this from an East Indian newspaper. Some people rose up in a certain area there, and they came out in a public protest. Amazing. People want freedom. They won't be denied. Magnificent. It said how Hamas are terrorists and so on. And of course, this is a problem for Hamas, who wants to portray that the Palestinian people are behind them. The Palestinian people are not behind them. They know, even the children know, that Hamas is not in it for them, but they're just a terrorist organization. They're dangerous, and they're murderers. And so this is a problem for them, and Hamas didn't react openly. It would have been problematic, so they let the people have their moment of public expression. And like I said, this is not being shared. I'm one of the only people I know in the entire news media who's sharing stuff like this. I got this, like I said, from an Indian newspaper. And so what happened is this. They identified after the fact, they took their operatives out there, identified some of the people. They executed 6 of the protesters. They actually tortured and killed one of the titular or nominal leaders of the protest, I think for like 4 hours. They tortured him basically to death for 4 hours, brought him back to his home, left him on his porch, basically dead. It reminds me of the old James Bond movie in Dr. No. He maneuvers the girl who wants to get him killed so that she gets killed instead. She gets shot in the back. And he moves her dead body, freshly dead body, over to some people sitting. It's like they're in a nightclub, sitting at a table. And he drops her off in a chair with the quick comment, "Oh, she's just dead." It was kind of casual like that. So what I would want to ask Zoran Mamdani, the mayoral candidate for the city of New York, and I'm going to get started on that guy in a second. And I'm not for him because he's basically using the platform of mayoralty campaign for New York City, which absolutely positively should be with regard for the things of New York, and he's using it for the Intifada and the globalization of the Intifada. And this is something that has no place in New York politics in this way. And there are several reasons for that. The enormous Jewish population, for example, is one. There are others. It's not merely the enormous Jewish population. There are other really good reasons for it. Not going to get into them now. Probably we'll have another show where we'll get into them. I already have talked about it. But it just had no place. This is a city. This is the mayoralty election for mayor of the city. This is what he is. And yet he's doing this. And I would want to ask him. But all of the news media, they want him because he's an ultra-left. And I've explained why before. They want the ultra-lefts because the ultra-lefts lose. And because the ultra-lefts portray the Democratic Party in a bad light. And all the media, they're all asking him softball questions. Nobody's asking him the hard questions. Recently, Chris Hayes on MSNBC, it was about a week and a half ago, had him on, just all slow-pitch softball. Just like old people with bad knees who can't run much. Nobody is really holding his feet to the fire. And with regard to what I just reported about basically the execution of protesters and the torture and essentially execution of one of the leaders of the protest, I would, if I were Chris, I would say, with regard to this, The Palestinians, Arab protesters, including Palestinians, protesting against the rule of Hamas. I mean, does that fall under your acknowledgement of universal human rights? Because this is what Hamas does. They're a terror organization, plain and simple. Among other things, they control the supply of food and medicine and other necessaries into Gaza. It comes through these tunnels, and they charge a surcharge for the delivery of these things. Then they turn around again and they sell it to the people, and they charge the people once again. It's cruel. The Palestinian people are suffering. Hamas has the capability, and as a government, supposedly they want to govern these people, they should be doing this. They should be supplying their own people with food, medicine, other necessaries, and they've got supplies in the tunnels. So Hamas, they don't starve, but they allow their own people to starve. And that's the thing, among other things, that could be mentioned that is just deeply offensive, and that people need to know that it's all a cruel game. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, that other Arab countries, they really don't want to have anything to do with the Palestinians. Yes, they'll use them in order to make trouble and to make themselves look good with their own people. But it's always been this way. They don't want to have anything to do with them. And I've explained to you how one of the reasons why is because wherever they go, they try to take things over. You have like Black September in what was it, like 1970? Kingdom of Jordan, and they've done it in several other places too. They tried it in Lebanon when they were there. This is Yasser Arafat. They tried it in Tunisia. They tried it in Kuwait. They always do this wherever they go. And by the way, this is why you'll hear me say, I don't support Yasser Arafat and his PLO. Of course, he has passed from the scene. Some people say, oh, well, the PLO got Yasser Arafat. He was good. No, he wasn't. He was basically just the same. Now, I will say this, Abu Abbas, that's different. But Yasser Arafat, no. And all the other knuckleheads with Hamas, no. So anyway, there's just a little bit of that, just a little bit on that. And at this point, let's take another break. This is Politics by Jake, and we will be back. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Let's be blunt, shall we? America is litigious. It's unstable, and it's financially weaponized. If your name is on everything you own, you're a sitting duck. At Twain Consulting, we help you vanish legally, ethically, and permanently. From land trusts to layered LLCs, we teach you how to restructure your assets so the predators can't see them and can't touch them. This isn't a loophole. It's a strategy that the wealthy have used for decades. Isn't it time you got the same protection? Call Twain Consulting at 805-380-5699 or visit us online. Protect what's yours before someone else claims it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. Hi, this is Jake with Politics by Jake. Do you like what you hear right now? Support the real talk then. Go to patreon.com/Politics by Jake right now. Every dollar helps fight the noise. All right, and this is Politics by Jake, and we are back. Now, the economy is in danger. We talked about that. What's going on in California that we talked about in the first segment, second segment too, is the chilling effect on commerce in California and other such farm and agricultural states, and how deplorable it is that those who are doing manual labor, and this is just disgusting, it's contemptible to me, it's loathsome, how people that are doing backbreaking manual labor that Americans would not know are so violated, so constrained, and so set upon. It's like an attack on the state and other states like California itself. It's a restraint upon trade and commerce. Because if ICE Gestapo, because that's exactly what they are, cowards who wear masks. If ICE Gestapo are free to invade farms and fields in order to save themselves, workers will not go to work. They will hide. Crops will not be picked. They will rot in the field. This will have a tremendous impact on California's economy. And as I said, the economy is in danger generally. We're going to keep talking about that because I think in terms of the economy, you're now actually dealing with a new bubble. And I just talked about it, didn't I? There's no growth, says in many places. What we had last week or the week before Zandy sees fully one third of the states are in recession. The bar chart that I looked at says the southern states in particular are really in bad shape in terms of consumer debt and related kind of debt. And you remember we talked about the stock bubble. We talked about the casino economy a lot on this show. Well, remember the tulip bubble? You remember we talked about that too on a show or so ago. Then there was the Mississippi bubble. There was the South Sea bubble. There were all these bubbles in the 1700s. This is not a new thing. Casino economy, the greater fool theory. All of these bubbles in the 1700s in England and France, always bubbles. Bubbles, they're like economic appeasement. They never work. They deflate. They come crashing down. Whenever you see a bubble, you know it's going to crash. That's all they can do. Of course, you have the stock market mania of the fall, the late summer, early fall of 1929. And then as we've seen it, we had the dot-com bubble. And this was this wonderful paradise. And don't think it's gone from us. This wonderful paradise world where companies that had no products and no profits and no pipeline of other products that they could get, they could shoot up in the stock market, quotations, until they came crashing down. And that was, 1999, 2000. And that's the danger. So now this time, what is it? It's an AI bubble. The artificial intelligence bubble. The AI bubble is the name of the threat right now. And it's a mania. It's getting to be similar to the .com. Anything with AI in it, buy it. My advice, don't buy it. That would be my word. And anything with crypto. Crypto is a kind of, it's a separate, but it's a related bubble. They undoubtedly have reciprocal relations at different points, but the AI bubble is here. And this idea, you think that NVIDIA, for example, is worth, what is it now? $4 trillion. $4 trillion. This just came out of nowhere. I guess, what was it, a year or two ago? We had the first $1 trillion one. That was Microsoft. And now we're supposed to believe, and once again, this is the greater fool theory. This is for the suckers. This is for the credulous. This is for the easily led. This is for the rubes. This is rube bait. We're supposed to believe that something like this is actually worth $4 trillion. Even with these debased, devalued dollars that we've got right now. I mean, it just makes no sense. So, okay, we've talked about that. Let's go, shall we? Let's go to the Kakistocracy Corner. And we know what the Kakistocracy Corner is. Kakistocracy, it's a Greek word. It comes from ancient Greece. And most of our language, people, and I always hate this, maybe it was because I took 6 or 8 years of Latin, but people always say Latin is a dead language. No, it's not. Over 50% of our language, over 50% comes from Latin. And I think it's something like about 37% comes from Greece. And this is one of the words, kakistocracy. And a kakistocracy is defined, as you recall me saying periodically on this show, because this is a segment that we do on the show kind of regularly now. Kakistocracy Corner. A kakistocracy is rule by the very worst, the most underqualified, the most unqualified, the most incompetent people. And that's the fascist cabal of Donald Trump. So, all right. So, I'm sorry I have to mention it again because it's pervasive. We have RFK before these Senate subcommittees. RFK was told by a senator, "You're a charlatan. You're a liar. You evade. You lie about the things that you said." And the guy, in order to be a demagogue, to have that tag, he had to make a lot of reckless, irresponsible, lying, distorted statements. But now, of course, he's speaking in public. And what he said, it's all on tape. And it's sort of in the public lie. So he's got to prevaricate. He's got to hem and haw. He's got to harump, harump, harump. Just like the great scene in the movie in Blazing Saddles. I didn't get a harump out of that guy. Harump. Give the governor harump. Harump. He's got to move away from what he actually said. And it becomes, "Oh, I don't remember. Oh, I didn't say that. Harump, harump, harump." And I would say, guys, senators, if you're going to get this guy, You're going to have to nail him down. Bring the tapes in, okay? Dear Democrats, because the Republicans won't do it. They have no morality. They have no concern whatsoever. Bring the tapes into the room and say, listen to this. Blah, 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 blah. And then, did you say that? And actually, I say this, but some of them have done that. Where he said there are no vaccines that are safe and effective. No vaccines that are safe and effective. This is at best, this statement alone is at best, it's kind of a pedantic, it's a metaphysical statement. Those words, pedantic, for example, means, well, a pedant, P-E-D-A-N-T, that's where the word pedantic comes from, is one of these who may do lots of annoying things, such as point out minor errors, correct people who make small mistakes, enlarge those into an issue, brag about their own knowledge and expertise. Pedants use big words. That's one of the obfuscatory things that they use to cloud issues. Like, for example, I once heard a person say, this is what a pedant would be like at a horse race, where you or I would say, run, go! A pedantic person would say something like, hasten on, ho horse, lest thou be overtaken. So that's a pedant. And as I said, pedants try to make small things that are de minimis. De minimis is a legal term, and it means just the very smallest that there can be, the least significant stuff. And there's a well-known, to lawyers anyway, judges too, judicial officers, saying that it actually quite applies to the law, and which, as I said, pretty much all lawyers and judges know, and this is that. At first, the original Latin, which is de minimis lex non curat. But what this means is the law has no remedy for trifles. And when I say trifles, I mean things of the absolute least significance. But a pedant? These guys live in de minimis, these trifles, where they make their bones. It's where they entrap the credulous, the easily led, the useful idiots, well-meaning but naive individuals. And this is where RFK Jr. lives. This is where he makes his bones. Some vague rumor, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? I say, where's the extraordinary evidence? But he lives on this. Some guy that he heard of got sick from a vaccine and they died. Where's the evidence? So here's the evidence. This is not extraordinary. Well, it's the evidence. And when I talk about him being metaphysical, that means the definition of that is that which transcends the physical, traversing, which means crossing, into the immaterial, that which cannot be seen. A reality, shall we say, that is not perceptible to the human senses. And that's where people like RFK Jr. live too. So, okay. But here's the truth. And I'm sorry, in Politics by Jake, I know that we say the things that nobody else will say. And I'm about to say another thing. Nothing in this life is safe. Nothing. If you want to apply those sort of criteria. And at this point, let's take a break. And this is Politics by Jake, and we will be back with more. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Let's be blunt, shall we? America is litigious. It's unstable, and it's financially weaponized. If your name is on everything you own, you're a sitting duck. At Twain Consulting, we help you vanish legally, ethically, and permanently. From land trusts to layered LLCs, we teach you how to restructure your assets so the predators can't see them and can't touch them. This isn't a loophole. It's a strategy that the wealthy have used for decades. Isn't it time you got the same protection? Call Twain Consulting at 805-380-5699 or visit us online. Protect what's yours before someone else claims it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. This is Jake, here to tell you the world is on fire, only you're not being told who actually lit the match. Politics by Jake, Mondays and Fridays at 7 a.m. on KCAA. And this is Politics by Jake, and we're back. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show. You're coming in a little late, but that's okay. We'll say some really good things here. What I want to tell you, among the other things that I want to tell you, is this idea that the government is dissolving into chaos. The government is attacking the people. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. They want to take your health care away. They do. They want to take your health care away. They're trying to do it. They want to shut down rural hospitals, for example. They want to wreck Obamacare, for example. They're gouging deep into Medicaid. You've heard me talk about this for a long time. 880 billion over 10 years. The rural hospitals, they're gouging into Medicare, where we have all these solemn promises. Oh, we won't touch Medicare. Well, it's all a bunch of political nonsense. Similar to the Epstein promises in the sense that they were formal pledges. Those are also up in the air. It indicates, I guess we'd have to say, really a kind of a death cult. That MAGA shows signs, and I would say they're full blown, but shows signs, definitely, of turning itself into a death cult. Kennedy, RFK Jr., we just talked about on the last segment, he and his entourage, they seem to ignore that. And by ignoring that, they testify of their ability and their desire to be a part of it, this death cult. They don't care. They don't care about anything about this. And so you've got to remember, because what do we say so often on this show? Listen to me. Listen to Jake. This is it. A fascist cabal has obtained the reins of government. I've explained that before, and I will not cease to explain it because it is a tremendous and grave danger. In 1945, the United States defeated fascism. And it was within our borders then, especially in the 30s. You had Lindbergh with his America First. You had Nazi summer camps for the people. You had the 1939 terrible rally at Madison Square Garden with the flags and the marching and everything. It was like a mini Nuremberg. For those of you who don't know what Nuremberg is, look at the Nuremberg rally. Leni Riefenstahl, who recorded it all and was all for it, thought it was great. You need to go to YouTube and you need to look at that. Then look at the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. It's the same thing. So it was within our borders then. But we had leaders with open eyes who had a proper perspective and who had the nation behind them and who could defeat it. And we did. But 100 years or so later, fascism is at our very doors. And this time, it's gotten in the door. And it is inside our own country. And one thing about fascism, it needs a rationality in order to thrive. We've talked about this before. It's absolutely fundamental. Fascism cannot thrive if the average individual acts on his own or her own or their own enlightened self-interest. And often it's economic, but it's your own enlightened self-interest. Listen to me, you maggots. I know you're out there listening to me. Work for your own enlightened self-interest for once. Because enlightened self-interest, if you're doing that, you can't be a fascist and even recognize what your own enlightened self-interest could be. Think about that. We've also pretty much always, since I started doing these shows, talked about enlightened economic self-interest. We've talked about how if the Democrats would return to the principles of the New Deal, which, sorry, they departed from in about the 80s, and the Clintonistas, the corporate Democrats, the DLC Democrats, it's all the same, the Clintonistas, they were the ones who departed from it in a big way, but it was already coming. It was coming somewhat under Carter towards the end of his presidency. But if the Democrats would return to the principles of the New Deal, that was all about that. And it is that which elevated the middle class to a power and a status that really lasted until about 2015, amazingly, which interestingly is about the time that Donald Trump came on the scene. And I'm telling you, even now, if we did that, all would be well. And, you know, you might say this, oh, Jake, you know, Here's Jake again. This darn Jake. You just want to use government for your own selfish economic interests. You're trying to tell us that we should use government for our own selfish economic interests. And I say, well, number one, why not? It's certainly what the fascists are doing. It's what the reactionaries are doing. It's what the Republicans are doing. It's what the conservatives are doing and what they have always done. Do you think that they are not all trying to use government to feather their own nests, so to speak? If you don't, I say, guess again. Think again. So there's no reason for you not to, and the New Deal created a powerful middle class. It created a middle class that was recognized. It took its place as the great economic engine of both the nation and the world. It defeated fascism. It defeated monarchs. It defeated oligarchs. It defeated tyranny, and did the other things. Put a man on the moon and more. But in order to return to that, you need to stop being a fascist, because being a fascist is not in your enlightened self-interest. And that's as true today as it ever was. So, as I said, fascism needs irrationality. It cries out fairly for mysticism. A couple of examples here. The standard ones that we always give. In the case of Italian fascism, for example, there was, was that during the time of Mussolini, there was something called the School of Fascist Mysticism. It was in Milan, and it was done under Mussolini's own brother, Arnaldo Mussolini, in Milan. La Scuola Accademia di Mistica Fascista. Fascist mysticism. It's not rationality, it's not reason, it's not even understanding. But it was an opinion. It was like, hey, I like fascism. So that's, of course, we always, with Heinrich Himmler and the SS, what do we have? We have these castles. They're like medieval castles where they would do various kinds of rituals, various kinds of mystical things, various kinds of mumbo-jumbo type ceremonies, God knows what else. And there were like half a dozen of these SS castles. And these guys are the black shirts, right? The Schutzstaffel, the elite militia, not the plebeian pedestrian goons of the SA, but this is the SS. And in fact, Nazism did have this mystical side. Do you remember the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark? That was real. That was the Nazis. They were totally into that kind of stuff. They had to have this stuff about what was called Lebensborn, the spring of life, the fountain of life. So that's what they had. All of this stuff. And Wagnerian opera, which is, Hitler was entranced with that. That's a great grab bag of irrationalism. All right, and that's about all the time we have. I'd love to go through more of this stuff. I have more for you, but it'll have to wait until the next show. So this has been the September 12th show for Politics by Jake. I am your host, Jake, and we're coming up on the weekend here, and I hope you have a great weekend. Everything goes well for you. A lot of football to watch, a lot of baseball. All the races are getting close in baseball. Very exciting stuff. And we will be back here, God's willing, at 7 a.m. on Monday for yet another show. Take care now. Bye-bye. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Imagine, if you will, having the power to disappear from the prying eyes of creditors, identity thieves, nosy strangers, all while protecting what you've worked so hard to build. That's what virtual invisibility offers. It's not magic. It's smart legal and business strategy to shield your assets and privacy so you can live free, confident, and in control. Most people think that asset protection is only for the ultra-wealthy, but it's for anyone who wants peace of mind and financial security, including you. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control now. Call me at 213-465-0639 or go to facebook.com/Twain Consulting to learn how virtual invisibility can protect you and your family, because when you're invisible to risk, you're unstoppable. Now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake.